I've been hearing a lot of people. During this last week, I'm not going to name names, but there were some people that were uploading videos talking about how Jimmy G's a mistake and all that. Well, I have to respectfully disagree. I've heard people say things like he's a mistake, he's not worth the money, he's not the answer, all this stuff. And I have to say that I respectfully disagree because I'll explain why. The Minnesota game, he did. People say he didn't play good when he was playing the season. That's not necessarily true. I'll give you the Minnesota game. That game, he did not play well. That I will agree with you on. He did not play well in that game. But let's look at those other two games. The Lions game, his stats were 18 for 26, 206 yards, two touchdowns. His longest pass was 35 yards. He had a quarterback rating of 118.4. The offense scored 30 points with him out there as the starting quarterback. Now let's look at the Chiefs game. Jimmy Garoppolo completed 20 of 30 passes for 251 yards with two touchdowns before his injury. He finished the game with a passer rating of 114.7, the third highest mark of his career during a start. Now, and plus, in that game against the Chiefs, the offense scored 27 points with him out there as starting quarterback. So, and he made some nice throws in both of those games. So I just read you those numbers, and I just pointed some facts out, and you're saying that he didn't play well in those games? Stats don't lie. He did fine in those games. That first game against the Lions, I would say those are probably maybe about average for a quarterback. But then again, they're not bad either. They're pretty. I would say they're decent stats. The game against the Chiefs though were more impressive. But it's not like every game he played poorly. And I just showed you two games right there where he did play good. Now, another thing that people need to understand is that Jimmy G is learning a new playbook. Kyle Shanahan's playbook is really hard to learn. There's just so many plays in there, and you got a quarterback that's essentially going from a Bill Belichick offense to a Kyle Shanahan offense. And when he won those games last year at the end of last season, when they won those 5 games with him, they were not using Kyle Shanahan's playbook. They were just using basic stuff, vanilla stuff, until they got him caught up on the offense. They were just using that for him to go out there and to perform. They couldn't get him speeded up on Kyle Shanahan's playbook that fast. So this was supposed to be the year that he was really supposed to learn Kyle Shanahan's offense. And I think that's why he was kind of struggling a little bit in those games. And even with those numbers, which are decent numbers, he was doing fine for a guy who was learning a new playbook, Kyle Shanahan's new playbook. But nobody's going to point that out. People don't point that out. And then as far as the injury-prone stuff, people say, well, you know, also keep in mind too that I also hear people before I get to the injury deal. I hear people say that those 5 games were a small sample size. I even think these 3 games were a small sample size. We have still yet to see him for a full season before the verdict is out. I mean, if he wins 5 games last season. Oh, that's not enough. And then he has one bad game. Oh no, he's not the answer. He's not the answer. What do you expect him to go undefeated? Never have a bad game ever? I mean, you're willing to make judgment over one game? You're able to judge him just one bad game over the 5 games he won? Come on, come on. He won. You can't. I mean, one loss that's a small sample size. 2 losses is a small sample size. So you can't really make judgment on that right offhand. So, but I think he'll be fine. Now, as far as his injury goes, Yes, it's a setback for him. He needed to learn the playbook and stuff this season. That he was supposed. This was supposed to be the year that he was supposed to dive into that playbook and really learn Kyle Shanahan's playbook. It's a complicated playbook to learn, and I think that. But I think that he did gain some knowledge from those 3 games that he played in, and he's got a whole off season to dive even more into that playbook. So we'll see how it turns out next season. But I think the guy deserves a chance. I mean, the injuries, he had 2 injuries kind of close to each other in recent years, but that can happen to a lot of quarterbacks. It doesn't yet mean that he's injury prone. Now, if he goes into next season with another season-ending injury, then maybe you could make that case. But that happens. That's football. Players get hurt all the time. I think that I mean, you know, Tom Brady. Tom Brady had an injury, was out for a season. Joe Montana almost missed an entire season with a back injury. And those players, Joe Montana has had a lot of injuries in his career. I mean, but he still played. He had the back problem. He had the elbow problem. There were times where he had sore ribs. So, and a sore knee. So, but he still played, and he played great. I'm not comparing Jimmy G and Joe Montana, but I'm just saying, give the guy a chance. I'm willing to give him a chance, and I have seen good things in him. It's like that game last year. Those 5 games last year when they're showing highlight films of him rallying the guys and saying, "Okay, this is what we're going to do," and he's motivating guys. I like what I saw there. I don't see C.J. Beathard doing that. I don't see him doing that. But Jimmy G was doing that. He was getting these guys to focus. Say, let's go out there, let's get it done. We're going to do that, this, and he looked pretty good. He looked really pretty good out there in performing in those games. So I think that he's our best option moving forward. I mean, if you want to compare all 3 quarterbacks, Jimmy G is 8-2 as a starter, 6-2 as a Niner. I think CJ is like what, 1-10 or 1-9 as a Niner. Nick Mullins is 1-1, although we haven't really seen enough of Nick Mullins to really make an evaluation of exactly how good he's going to be and what his winning and losing record will be with the team. But I believe that Jimmy Garoppolo, and I think Nick Mullins is going to be a good quarterback, but I think moving forward, Jimmy Garoppolo is our best answer until he really, really fails. But I don't see that happening. I think he's going to be just fine. Hey, I'm a Jimmy G supporter. I'm wearing his jersey. I'm totally on board. I'm totally giving the guy a chance. And what I just told you is the truth. The numbers that I read you, he played well in those other 2 games. Now, I know that in the Lions game, he almost threw an interception in that game that could have cost them the game. But keep in mind, like I said before, he's learning a new playbook. So things like that are going to happen, while you're learning a new playbook. And I'm not still trying to make comparisons to Joe Montana or anything like that. But Joe Montana wasn't all that great in his first year as a starter. It was his second year as a starter, though. He really did well. But I say give Jimmy G a chance. I think he'll be fine for us. And like I said, you can't make too much out of this injury. I know people are out there too quick to do it, but I think he'll be fine. Just give the guy a chance. Everybody deserves a chance. I think he has the ability. I really believe that he has it in him. I've seen it. We all have seen it. And I think that he'll be fine out there. So that's all I want to say in my video, and talk to you later.